Hello everyone, today I will tell you about the film Beasts of No Nation. Enjoy watching! Before watching, please don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. I'm trying to develop this channel and your support is the only thing I have. A civil war broke out in an African country. The school where Agu studied was destroyed, and now the children have to come up with their own ways to entertain themselves. For example, watch an imaginary TV without a screen, where they themselves are the actors. Agu and other refugees live in a buffer zone, the security of which is provided by Nigerians. A good soldier agreed to exchange this garbage for food. Mom works hard to feed Agu and his brothers. His father was a teacher, but now deals with the problems of refugees. The older brother only cares about his muscles and hair. Agu sometimes helps him wash his hair. The boys cut down a branch and threw it on the road to block the path of a passing car. For a fee of a few coins, they removed the branch from the road. Suddenly, a crazy woman attacked them. She hates Agu's family and all the locals. During dinner, the father saw that the box had been removed from his TV, and the insides were placed on books. That's how Agu made 2 TVs out of 1. The radio broadcasts alarming news. The rebels are winning. A military junta has seized control of the country. Armed men in armored vehicles have broken the rules and entered the buffer zone. The community is gathered in the church and is deciding what to do next. The women and children are urgently being taken en masse to a safe place. Agu's mother wanted to leave with him and the youngest child, but the driver refused to take the boy. There was no more room. Agu burst into tears. He had to stay with the men. There is fighting in the streets of the city. Civilians are being shot. The family hid in one of the buildings. Suddenly a cannon was fired at it. Many panicked and ran outside. They were immediately shot. The rest were forced to kneel by government soldiers and interrogated. One woman must identify the locals. It turned out that their lives were in the hands of a mad woman, and she said that she did not know any of them, which meant that they were rebels. The commander ordered them all to be executed. Dad and grandfather were shot. Agu and his brother managed to escape, but they were pursued and shot at. Soon his brother was shot, and Agu was left all alone. He walks through the forest and cries. The next day, Agu came across an abandoned hut, but he could not find anything to eat or make a fire. He had to eat leaves. Soon the boy vomited. After wandering around the jungle for some time, he encountered a detachment of armed teenagers who were part of the army of one of the rebel factions. He was brought to the main one, the commandant. He decides what to do with the boy and asks him how he got there. Agu told everything as it was, that government troops killed his father and brother. The commandant decided that he would raise him and make him a warrior who would take revenge on the army that had deprived him of his family. The boy was immediately given a box of cartridges, which he would drag through the jungle. After some time, they reached the camp. Agu and other recruits, mostly children, would soon be initiated into soldiers. Our hero was taken aside and ordered to train another teenager. Everyone around except Agu was eating porridge. He also asked for food, which only caused laughter among the soldiers. He was forced to stand on a stool and salute. He saw how little Strika ran into the commandant's hut. During training, recruits were given sticks instead of machine guns. The rebels do not forget about propaganda. They refuse to recognize the current government, which robbed them and deprived them of natural resources. On the battlefield, the People's Self-Defense Militia does not think, but carries out a mission and destroys anyone who threatens them. The soldiers entertain themselves with a game of football, which can turn into a brawl at any moment. The commandant is not just a commander for the militia, but a mentor with the privileges of a king. His men fight against both the old government and the military junta. It was time for Agu to be initiated. The recruits were seated over coals, enveloped in thick smoke. Afterwards, the boy ran through the crowd, which beat him with sticks. The guy who lost consciousness during the test had his throat cut. Agu was put in a grave so that he could be reborn like that. The final stage was execution. The machine guns were loaded with blanks. Well, the commandant told the boys that they were now invulnerable to their enemies. According to the commandant, that was the end of the fun. They were going to fight. The rebels' enemies should not find anything, so the camp was burned to the ground. Agu is again wandering through the jungle with a box of cartridges on his head. Having reached the bridge, the guerrillas set up an ambush. Soon a convoy of cars appeared. A young man with a grenade launcher ran out in front of it and blew up the first car. The soldiers shot at the rest of the transport, sending more than a dozen people to the next world. They managed to take one prisoner. It was time for Agu to undergo initiation by killing a prisoner. The man swears that he is an engineer and was supposed to build bridges, but the commandant does not listen to him. Instead, he handed the boy a machete and asked him to imagine that there was a hard melon in front of him. People like him killed his father. Agu dealt the first weak blow. An experienced Strika came up and showed him how to hit. When the prisoner fell to the ground, the boys continued to strike blow after blow until they turned the man into mincemeat. So Agu deserved to get his machine gun. The mute Strika handed him a uniform that had been taken from the dead. The younger fighters have become friends. When they don't have to kill, they play like normal kids. A helicopter flew overhead, and everyone immediately hid in the grass. At night, refugees came to the camp, whose village was captured by the enemy army, and most of the population was killed. Then we will retake it, says the commandant. During the assault, a bullet almost hit Agu. Only part of the battalion under the command of the deputy commander went into the attack. The main forces are at the beginning of the village. The commandant called Strika and Agu to show through the sniper scope how they hit enemy positions with a mortar. It seems that Agu is becoming his new little favorite instead of Strika. The commandant urged the rest of the soldiers to go into battle, and they ran to capture the bridge. Grenade launchers and machine guns were used. Agu shoots at people with a machine gun for the first time. As a result of the successful attack, the enemy was driven out of the village. The rebels celebrated this event with a victory dance. True, they lost 11 fighters, whose pockets were immediately emptied. The commandant is promised that if he captures the city, he will be promoted to general. The man called Agu to him. He says that they are approaching the capital, where Agu's mother is now. Then he invited the boy into the bedroom, gave him a gift and said that he is special. Well, and then ordered him to kneel down and do what he had to do before in Strika. A friend guessed what the tearful Agu had just gone through and helped him reach the fire. The army continues on its way. The soldiers approached the city and began shooting civilians while still in the field. The slaughter continued in the city itself. Dozens of bodies lie in the streets. Agu is constantly pumped with substances, and he already perceives the hell that is happening around him with a smile. The boy ran into a rich house. During the cleanup, the squad found a woman hiding in a closet with her daughter. Agu fell to his knees and hugged her, calling her his mother. Then he came to his senses and accused the stranger of being a witch and drugging him. The girl was taken away from her and kicked. The others threw the woman on the bed, but Agu spoiled their fun and shot her. No one was left alive in the city, and the last 2 residents were executed by shoving grenades into their teeth. The soldiers drove into the big city with an important look, where the headquarters is located. However, the leader preferred to first meet with some Asian, and not with the commandant. Evening came, and the commander receives only foreigners in suits, forcing his loyal officer to languish in the street. In the end, the company was seated in the reception area and given a bag of water. Finally, the next morning, the commandant was granted an audience with the supreme commander. The soldiers were allowed to pounce on the food that was left on the table. He said that the whole world had learned about the conflict, and the organization now needed to keep up appearances. They would not march on the capital, and he would not make the commandant a general, and his battalion would now be commanded by the deputy commander. From that moment on, the commandant received the position of deputy head of security. And what would his pay be? What share of the resources would he receive? The commander replied that he was only a soldier, and his duty was to obey. The commandant announced that today would be a holiday, and led the soldiers to some inconspicuous bar. The boys were given warm beer. The worried deputy commander wanted to leave, but the chief did not let him go. Each received a girl, except for the youngest. They were left to guard the weapons. Suddenly a shot rang out. One of the young ladies was playing with a pistol and shot the deputy commander. He believes that the commandant set it all up. The brothel owner and the guilty girl were immediately shot, and the rest were taken with them. The deputy commander dies. He took Agu by the hand and said that it was all in vain, and then died. And so the battalion handover ceremony turned into a funeral. The commandant immediately announces that from now on, the supreme commander is their enemy. They must take back the territory and fill their pockets. Agu concluded that the only way not to fight is to be dead. At night, an airstrike was carried out on their camp. Many died, including the new deputy commander. Even if the war ends, Agu will no longer be able to return to his childish affairs. He has nowhere else to go. Due to the lack of food, they have to eat grasshoppers. As soon as the squad settled down for a rest, shots were heard. For some reason, Strika refuses to go further. It turned out that the boy was seriously wounded. Agu threw Strika on his back to save his friend. He was very tired, but continued to carry Strika until one moment he realized that he was dead. The little fighter's body was covered with leaves and left lying in the middle of the jungle. The former soldiers are sitting in deep flooded trenches, no longer understanding what they are doing here. Agu was sent to bring ammo for the machine gun, but the ammunition ran out. The commandant calls Agu his son, which means the boy must protect his father. The new deputy commander told the commandant that they are leaving. The soldiers have been sitting here for several months, and they have not found any gold. And now they have no ammo to shoot the enemy. No money, no food. People are getting sick and dying every day. It's madness. The commandant is intimidating his people. The next thing they'll face is either prison or death. They have nowhere to go. An uneducated rabble that even their families wouldn't want to deal with. He was their future. The deputy commander pointed his machine gun at the man, but he had no bullets. And then Agu turned the barrel of his machine gun on the commandant. The latter knelt down and asked Agu to shoot him. "Do you want to surrender?" The commandant asks him, poking the gun at his head. "Yes," the boy replies. "Well, get out of here then." The commandant dismissed his men. In his opinion, they would come again at his first call. Not a single person stayed with the commandant. The lost children surrendered to the UN troops at the first opportunity. The youngest were put in a car at night. The rest were laid on the sand. After some time, Agu found himself in a missionary school in a safe part of the country. The boy keeps away from the frolicking children. Nightmares torment him at night. He remembered the smell of dead bodies for the rest of his life. Even though the boys now have food, a roof over their heads, and the opportunity to get an education, some of them are eager to go to war again. Agu looks at the psychologist like an old man looks at a girl. After all, he knows what war is, but she does not. The boy has seen terrible things and done terrible things. Therefore, if he talks about them, it will upset both him and the psychologist. The woman will think that he is a beast or a devil, and all he wants is to be happy in this life. Finally, Agu runs to the playing children. He will try to start a new life. This is where the film ends.